Peace and blessings. Welcome to another edition of ASHE. I'm your host, Imakhu. We are at such an amazing time in history. I must tell you, I never, ever in my life thought that I would ever witness what we are about to experience at this time in our country. We have a serious black presidential candidate running for office. Never, I never thought in my lifetime that we would see this. Now, this is the thing that's interesting, though, because while we are at this place in time, and some say that it makes sense because we've gone through the radical 60s and there's been this shift in consciousness, but then there was a swing back with the 80s, the meism of the 80s, the Reagan 80s, and things have come back to a place where we're not quite sure where we have landed. And some say that this is the time, this is the place, our time has come. We have this influx of new thinking from the youth, and also for the old heads like me, the old hipsters, you know, that are pushing this consciousness to the fore, that now is the time. The question is it really? There's a poem that Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote called We Wear the Mask that talks about the mask that black folks had become accustomed to wearing in order to be able to be around white folks, in order to maintain peace living in white society. And I guess the question really comes down to who really wears the mask when it comes down to this presidential election. Joining us today is a favorite returning guest, Sister Karen Hatter, who is the featured social commentator for Akeru Global Radio, and also who is the darling at Now Public, who is a very popular global commentary site on the web. And your articles are always going right to the top. And you actually also were recently contacted by the BBC because they wanted to speak to you about a lot of the issues regarding your views with the economy and also some views regarding the election, yes?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
All right. Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back.
As usual. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's jump right into the fray. Okay. All right. So let me just ask you this succinctly. Do you think America is ready for a black president?
Whether or not America is ready at this juncture, the way things appear to be going, it's a question of how can they become ready. I think that it's not so much whether or not he's a black man for a lot of individuals. We have a situation right now where there's a generation that has grown up outside of the sphere of segregation. They don't know any of that, and they don't necessarily see him as any kind of a problem. But what I will say is there are segments and elements within the United States, and it must be said it's the conservative right. They have a tendency, they have always embraced fear rather than change. Mm-hmm. And we're talking, when I say the conservative right, we're talking about politicians like Rush Limbaugh and what's that other guy, Sean Hannity, that's on Fox. Mm-hmm. And there's another element of that, which is the religious right. Now, I'm bringing them up for a specific reason. I went to the website of Focus on the Family, mm-hmm. and that's an organization, this umbrella group that the religious right has. And so it's, I forget how many thousands of organizations fall up under there. But like I said, it's headed up by James Dobson is his name. And they have posted at their website something called Letter from 2012 in Obama's America, okay? And it lays out what they see are their interpretations of what has happened under Democratic-controlled Congress. So they have all of these statutes and laws and things that have gotten passed, and they start listing all the terrible apocalyptic things that are going to happen if Obama is elected to office.
Oh, now see, that's interesting. Well, first of all, because, you know, when you mention Focus on the Family, the first thing I think of is public radio.
Okay.
Most people are familiar with Focus on the Family because of those few moments that you hear just about every day from James Dobson. You know, these nice little packaged moments
of his
Okay.
Well, so, see, you don't, and that particular persona is not the one that's the one they know. You're not really aware of their. It's almost xenophobic, their behavior, almost. And
you're right. You don't get that at all.
You don't get that at all. And what had happened, I had gone to the site. I don't even know why I had gone to the site, but there's a list of, you know, like as of 2009, the country will have been several countries will have been bombed. Millions of people will have been killed. And you know, as soon as he wins, Al Qaeda will declare victory against the United States, and meanwhile he's going to be too busy figuring out ways to let immigrants into the country rather than protecting America and prosecuting the people that have killed all these millions of Americans.
Immigrants, didn't that just happen the last 8 years? Under the Bush regime?
The problem is, see, the problem is the conservative right. They've been railing for the last 15 to 20 years. They've been compiling all kinds of statistics that show, as far as they're concerned, that by the year, it started out as 2050, the minorities were going to be more than actual, you know, Caucasian population in the country, right? Now, we're talking about all minorities, you know, Asians and everyone, and black people and Latinos and everyone, right? Now, they've been railing on that, right? And with a certain amount of terrorism in their, you know, thought processes, right? And it recently got bumped up to 2042. Is when they're going to be outnumbered. Now, going along with all that, all these characters like Pat Robertson and Rush Limbaugh, all of them have been ranting and raving about how the country is being lost, right? And all of that kind of thing. Now, I say all that to say, they do not represent mainstream America, right? The majority of white people are not running around terrified of, you know, the idea of Obama presidency. But it needs to be recognized that there are those elements that are out there. For instance, the plot to assassinate Obama. Now, whether that was a credible plot or not doesn't matter. The FBI has warned against what they call the lone wolf syndrome, which is individuals who may or may not belong to one of those white supremacist groups, but because of the rhetoric of that particular segment of society, you know, they get all whipped into a kind of a frenzy, you know, and decide that for the good of the country, they have to go and do something.
Yeah, but is that really a lone wolf? They call them lone wolf, but I mean...
Well, it's only lone wolf in that they may not belong to the Aryan Brotherhood, but they might be viewers of their site all the time, you know, and they get all their literature. So they might not have a card that says, I'm with the Aryan Nation. They might not have that, but they still empathize with their... And so America, I think, as a whole, you know, is kind of like anything else. The people themselves would just kind of roll with the punches. The problem is systemic racism that we have.
Well, see, this is why I'm saying who really wears the mask, because you see, there's still the whole question of the Bradley effect.
They've been, well, I'll tell you what I'm finding most interesting about the Bradley effect is not whether or not or how it will play out.
You know, for our audience, could you just break down exactly what that means for those who...
in the 80s when Bradley, what's his first name? Tom Bradley, when he was running for governor in California, the thought process was that it was going to be a landslide win for him.
That's what the polls were saying.
Because the pollsters, you know, they were saying, are you going to vote for him? And he said, yeah. And then they're saying that there was a bit of a, I don't know, white lash, I guess. The white people that said they were going to vote for him, they didn't vote for him. And that kind of threw a kilter all the polling that they had done, right? And so they're saying that some of this can be, possibly translated into an effect that might affect Obama's lead, as it were, right now in the polls. Now, the problem is, of course, Bradley is only representative of one state. So whether or not the Bradley effect is something that would be a credible thing, it probably could be looked at state to state. But, nationally, with certain other states probably having more favorable kind of atmosphere for what they say to be true, who knows. But what I found interesting is I've been listening to the McCain campaign. It's almost like now that the only thing that they had to hang their hat on is maybe we're praying for the Bradley effect now, because as far
seem to be kind of imploding over there.
Yeah, they're imploding. I don't know what's going on with them over there, but I have been thoroughly disgusted with the tone of the Republican campaign. I feel that politicians, yes, they're all supposed to debate and argue about, their particular specific policies and all that kind of thing. But see, this whole let's drum up an element of fear of Obama. Here, we've been listening to this man speak. He's written, 3 books now? Everybody has some kind of insight into who he is. But they've been saying, we don't know him. And what happens when they learn, they say, we don't know him? What do they say? Well, he did this with terrorists, and he did that, and he did the other thing. He's an Arab, he's a Muslim, and all of that. Now, like Colin Powell said, so what if he was a Muslim? But everyone knows you can't elect a Muslim to be president of the United States in somebody's mind somewhere. Mm-hmm. If you're Arab American, so what? But the problem is that the rhetoric that they come up with sometime, it gets tied into things that are not relevant. And when I say that, I mean, okay, if the person's an Arab Muslim and they're American, and so what? That's what they are. That's who they are. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't matter, but it does. Mm-hmm. And so ever since 9/11, the whole specter of when you say palling around with terrorists, as Sarah Palin was going out on the stump night after night, week after week, month after month, and next thing you know, you got the crowd screaming out all kinds of repugnant things, as they're speaking, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, where is that coming from? Mm-hmm. And that's why John Lewis made the statement that he made. I understood exactly what he meant, when he was saying that, it sounded like George Wallace in that time period. And
well, I think the thing that's been really surprising to a lot of Americans, and seeing the McCain rallies, mm-hmm. and hearing a lot of what his supporters are saying, is that it's surprising to find that people still feel that way. People still have these beliefs. People still have these fears, because there is the common feeling or illusion, if you will, mm-hmm. that all that has been eradicated as America has quote unquote progress, that Obama is supposed to be the representation of how far America has come, and that all of that has somehow just eased away. And the McCain run for presidency has proven, if nothing else, that racism is still here.
It opened that sore right up. It opened that sore. Well, see, part of that is because for the last 2 decades, they've been telling black people, whenever you talk about race and say anything about racism, you're playing the race card. You're just making that up because, hey, we got civil rights now. We passed a Civil Rights Act. You guys can sit on toilets and go to the same cemetery as we do. So for all intent and purpose, no problem anymore. And it is a bizarre, visceral kind of thing that you're seeing at those rallies. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, it's not like you didn't expect it, but you didn't expect it to be such a overwhelming kind of thing. I mean, it's almost you getting ready to hear yeehaw in a little. party, saddle up and go somewhere, you know?
But you know what's really interesting? I try my best to watch The View every day. Okay, that has become a litmus test, if you will.
Okay.
And it's interesting because you have Elizabeth Hasselbeck, who represents not only right-wing America, but I mean, she's a young woman. I don't think, is she 30? I think she's 30.
I don't know. Is she that young? I thought she was younger than that.
Yeah, she might not even be 30.
Okay.
Against other women, this whole other panel of women who are not right-wing and who hold varying degrees of liberal views.
Right views, yeah.
Yeah, and but I think the thing that has been the most eye-opening to me, and she actually has done a great service, I think, to this country because of the fact that she has shown that, yes, even someone as young as she is holds these views. It is like she is. She does not even realize, I feel, that she is very greatly waving the banner of, I am a person of privilege, and I do not want to let go.
Right,
of that.
I'm holding on to it. Well, you know, I'm forced to say that there's a schism growing in the Republican Party, and that's one reason you're seeing all of these prominent Republicans coming out and saying, "I'm supporting Obama," because I believe that there's a faction. You know how you have the so-called centrists, and then you have the far right folks, and I think it's the far right folks that are the ones that have this rabid xenophobic attitude, and I think that just like after the Civil War, and there were elements, obviously, if the majority population was white people, then the majority white people said, we can't continue to have this animosity kind of thing. We have to work forward to try to get past that and beyond that, right? And I think that the Republican Party, those individuals like Colin Powell and all these other folks that have stepped out, I mean, the Colin Powell endorsement was really interesting to me because here's a man who a lot of white people had said, well, I couldn't vote for Obama, but if Colin Powell were to run, I would vote for him. And I said, okay, well, here you go. If Colin says he's cool, then why ain't he cool? And now all of a sudden, Colin Powell has turned into persona non grata, and it has been not lambasted, but the Republican Party is not happy.
Yeah, that's because he hasn't. Well, the past few years, he basically has turned.
Yeah, he's been distancing himself from all the stuff that happened.
Well, I mean, it's funny because a lot of black folks have been like, I think he's trying to get his he's trying to earn his race card.
He's trying to get his card back.
Right.
I tell you. Yeah.
But yes, the turn of events over the last few weeks have been very interesting. But then also, you recently wrote articles pertaining to how even hoaxes have been perpetuated within the McCain camp.
Yeah. Well, at this juncture, it can't necessarily be tied to the national level. Can't really even sort of really tie it to the local level per se, as if, they say, hey, go out there and do that. But the young lady up in Pittsburgh, she was, first of all, the main thing of distinction to be made about her is that she was identified as a volunteer. But it turns out she was a paid staffer. She had worked in New York on the McCain campaign, and they brought her into Pittsburgh. She was a community organizer. They were paying her as a field rep to organize college students. And she had said that she was mugged at an ATM machine, and it was a 6'4", 200-pound black man that had mugged her. And then when he saw that she had a McCain Palin sticker on her car, he came back and knocked her down and fondled her and cut a B in her cheek, right? And it seems like, though, almost from day one, that the police thought her story was a little fishy, right? So it turned out, it unraveled in about a day that hadn't happened. But the thing is that all of the volatile information that was provided, the bee on the cheek, and 6'4", 200-pound black man, and this person saying, you're a McCain supporter, I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to teach you have to vote for Obama, right? The person that gave all this information was the communications director of that Pittsburgh Republican Party of Pennsylvania. Now, whether or not those were true elements of what she had told him, I question his judgment on putting out that type of information in such a racially charged situation. We're talking about, who was the guy that he just got raked over the coals for talking about rednecks in Pennsylvania. Now, whether they're rednecks in Pennsylvania, that's, for them to know. But I do know that there are at least 33 known white nationalist supremacist groups out there.
There are.
So if you're going to be, reporting stuff like that, and full well you're sitting right there in a hot seat, why, if you're a communications director, I know darn well that he knew better than to do something like that. So, I question his judgment on making a kind of statement like that, and having it within 2 hours, it was all over the internet, and it was all over the television, it was all over everywhere, Well,
I'll tell you, here's what is of interest to me also. Going back to the Bradley factor, because we, as the descendants of Southerners who came up north looking for a better life, and who discovered that the North is the land of covert racism, and know that we've had to deal with the glass ceiling and all of this. I wonder if there's going to be any kind of a white lash at the polls, because in terms of people who are saying they're going to support Obama, but then once they get into the
it could be. I mean, racism is not scientific, so therefore you can't measure it. You cannot say whether or not. Matter of fact, I just seen this really interesting kind of study where they said that they had come up with some kind of a experiment where it was kind of like the person's thinking one thing, but when they go in the booth, they just have to flip the other switch. And I said, I don't know what that was, but. I mean, it could be, but I tell you what, see, what's happening is right now, the polling may not truly be indicative of the real electorate, and it's only, it's a matter of we have to wait and see with the youth.
Well, no, that's true too. Now, see, on the other side of that, though, it's been projected that because most of the polling has been done with landlines,
right? They're not getting the cell.
That's right.
Right, they're not getting the cell phone.
And that it's been projected that most people who have cell phones actually are Obama supporters.
Yeah, that's what they've been saying.
Yeah, this is. I'm telling you, this is going to be.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
it will be.
Now, there's the other side that possibly this whole thing with the McCain campaign imploding the way that it is, that actually it might be quite intentional, that they know that the way that things have been screwed up over the last 8 years, that there is no way that anybody could fix this in the next 4. Hand Obama, give the election to the brother.
I don't think they care.
Let America see that the brother can't handle it. I'm saying this is the theory that's out there. Actually, my husband and I were talking about this.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let America see that the brother can't fix it. And they'll be begging for a Republican to come back and fix it in another 4 years.
Right,
that's another theory that's out there.
Yeah. Well, look. The whole, let him fix it. Let's see what he can do with it.
Right.
Yeah. I think. Well, I don't. That's always a possibility, but I don't see it because power does not cede power. And if they have had 8 years, they want more. I think that the problem is McCain was not the one that they wanted. If you recall, when the Republican primary was going on, he was like the least likely guy that they even wanted, and somehow or another he ended up getting all the votes because remember, under the way the Republican Party is structured, it's not like with the Democrats. Okay, whatever votes, Clinton got some and Obama got some. With them, it's all or nothing. So, when he won, he was able to sweep through and somehow or another emerge the winner out of the process. He was not the candidate they wanted. He was not the. I think they kind of wanted what's his face, Huckabee or Romney or one of them rascals, But so it ended up being him. So now this is who they're stuck with. Now, McCain, they keep calling him, the Maverick. Personally, he seems more like a loose cannon. You never know what he's going to do. And for whatever reason, and then his vice presidential pick, and we won't even get into that,
Next.
Yeah, next. But so I think that he has been ill-advised by some faction in his party about using the line of attack to keep trying to make Obama be this bizarre alien foreign person. They're still doing that in some of the swing states right now. They're running on the 30-second ads and all the things that more or less want to make you pull the covers up over your head and hide under the bed for the next 4 years if Obama gets in. They're running, these scary things. The scenario of, oh my God, And I had no idea who came up with that strategy. Now, of course, they've been laying at the feet, that's supposedly the character assassination at the feet of Karl Rove. I don't know who's come up with the foreigner plan of attack, but it's going to be interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, I think a lot of us are shocked that that the brother is still even around. I mean, they're no, truly, because we've been waiting for the assassination. We're surprised this is the first major assassination talk. And all this, and so I think we should keep our prayers floating out there for him and for the family. And I believe this is a major time of change. And
I think so.
However you feel about voting, I feel it's important to make sure that your voice is heard. This is a process that our ancestors did fight for. Make sure your voice is heard. Make sure that your voice is felt and your presence is felt. And that's the most that I can say about this. I'm so glad that I'm alive to see this. And Lord knows, Lord willing, something doesn't happen between now and Election Day. So,
how about that?
Sister Karen, how can people contact you?
Okay, you can contact me at Mother Cares, AMOTHERCARES at AOL.com, and basically look for me at Akeru Radio.
And you can contact me at my website, imakhu.com, which is in transition, but it is. I'm so glad to say that it's up, and that's imakhu.com. Also at, say it with me now, akeruradio.com. Remember, you can make a difference. Claim your personal power. This is Imakhu, Shemotep, Mkut and Mer. ASHE.
Hey, hey.